Hi, this is Dr. Joel Singer again. I'd just have a discussion about what I've done for the past 2 years to stay healthy, prevent aging, and look as good as I do. After all, I'm 81 years old. I'm a retired physician. But what I want to talk about today is what I've actually done for myself based on my own scientific research and my own knowledge that has been gained over many years of practice and experience. So we're going to go into a lot of detail, but let me just say this. This is for my own self. I'm not asking anybody else to follow me. If you wish to find out more about this, I'm going to provide the information that you can use to make your own determination. You can ask your own doctor about these. None of these things I'm talking about are FDA approved, but there are many, many peer-reviewed scientific studies that I'm going to refer to, and you can look them over, read them. I'll try to interpret them for you so you can get an understanding of what we're talking about. So the first thing I want to talk about is some of the advances that have occurred in the past 20 some odd years, especially understanding diet and exercise, better understanding of the need for rest and sleep, and also some of the new treatments that have come about. So diet is very important. Why? We're suffering from an epidemic of obesity in the Western world. In the United States, it's estimated over 50% of the population would be considered obese. And obesity just leads itself to so many other disorders such as diabetes, heart disease, even joint problems are related to obesity. So how do we deal with obesity? I think the first thing is we have to restrict calories. It's hard sometimes. People go on diets left and right. There's all kinds of diets, you know, the Atkins diet, the low-fat diet, the Mediterranean diet, the paleo diet, you know, you name it, there's a diet, and every few years a new one comes out. Is that the answer? I'm not so sure. But I do think that some kind of diet that restricts calories, namely carbohydrates, is very important. So pick and choose whatever you like to eat, but limit the amount of carbohydrates, namely sweets and sugars and bread and cake. Limit that to, in some cases, 0, but in other cases, just minimal, and eat vegetables and fruits and protein sources. And also, I personally practice caloric restriction by doing intermittent fasting. And I started by just eating 12 hours a day and stop eating 12 hours a day. But now it's up to 8 hours a day of eating and 16 hours of fasting. I drink water when I fast. I've lost over 25 pounds. I'm no longer taking any blood pressure medication. I feel much healthier. My waistline is down. I feel great. And I look better. So caloric restriction is very important. And here's a review of an article that came out not too long ago. But very interestingly, in addition to all the health benefits of caloric restriction, your stem cells get strengthened by reducing the calories, because now you're putting less stress on your system, and your stem cells, which are the mechanism by which we heal, by which we replace our old dying cells or damaged cells, that gets better. So it's very good. Now, the right amount of sleeping. You know, people don't realize this, but too little sleep, yeah, sure, everyone knows that. But too much sleep is also not good for you. So the right amount of sleep, which is about 7 hours a night, this is a study that involved it was a meta-analysis of 23 other studies. And the conclusion was 7, 8 hours sleep a night, good sleep, is what most people should have for better health. And the mortality rate actually goes up if you have less than 5 hours sleep every night, average. And if you get more than 9 hours of sleep every night, it's also the mortality rate goes up. So what's the connection here? What's the anti-aging connection between sleep and rest and also proper diet or caloric restriction? The bottom line is stem cells. And stem cells, my humble opinion, is the most important discovery in human health in the last 20 years. And it's it's related to everything, including the immune system, including cancer, including how we heal, longevity, etc. Of course, there are other studies that you can point to, but I think this one is the number one. So what are stem cells? Well, the bone marrow produces mostly blood-forming cells, such as red cells, such as white cells, such as immune cells, such as T cells. The bone marrow produces these cells, and those are called hemopoietic cells, and they come from the stem cells in the bone marrow. In addition to that, bone marrow has mesenchymal cells, or otherwise known as MSCs, and this actually helps heal cartilage, bone, and nerve structures in the body. So bone marrow is extremely important. It turns out 20-some years ago, it was discovered that adipose tissue was another source, in fact, a very plentiful source of stem cells in the human body. Not only the external fat, but internal fat has a repository of stem cells. Internal fat meaning, surrounding all your organs, you have fatty tissue, even surrounding the heart, even in every joint, there's fatty tissue, and that fatty tissue has stem cells that help you. Mostly mesenchymal cells. And these cells work by either engrafting, in other words, the mesenchymal stem cell will go to the area of damage. It's attracted by cytokines, which are these hormones that are given off by damaged cells. The mesenchymal stem cells go there, they stick, they grow, and they replace the damaged cells. But in addition to that, they also secrete what's called exosomes, which contain growth factors and other molecules that help healing. So it's a complicated situation. Another source of stem cells is umbilical cord. And normally a baby gets born, they cut the cord and they throw out, they discard the placenta. Nowadays, placenta is being saved for additional processing to get placental tissue, especially the umbilical cord blood that contains mesenchymal stem cells. And these are then brought to a sterile laboratory where they're grown and used for later use. So here's a paper that I read maybe 3 or 4 years ago, but it's still, this is an ongoing study. University of Miami, multiple authors. And basically what they did was they studied Frailty Syndrome. Frailty Syndrome is where you have a patient who's like frail, very thin, very weak looking. And you can't figure out what's wrong with them because you do all these studies and there's nothing wrong with their heart, there's nothing wrong with, they don't have cancer, they don't have, infection, anything like that, but they're susceptible. And yet these people end up in nursing homes because they can't take care of themselves, they're too weak. So it turns out Frailty Syndrome is now thought to be a deficiency or a loss of stem cells. So they took 30 people, divided them into 3 groups. 10 people got 100 million stem cells, another 10 got 200 million, and the third group got a placebo or 0 stem cells. And they studied these people, and they studied pulmonary function, they studied heart function, they studied muscle strength, they studied cognitive function. And guess what? The people who received the stem cells got better. And in fact, the interesting thing about the study was that the 100 million cells worked better than the 200 million cells. Interesting, right? And, here's some graphs. You can study this paper in more detail, but bottom line, as much as 50% improvement in all these functions occurred in a stem cell group. So this is definitely a subject that has to be further studied because what it shows is that if you don't have enough stem cells, you're going to be very weak and probably susceptible to disease and probably going to die. So very important, all the things I just said. Now, if you like this video, please give me a thumbs up on the bottom and subscribe to my channel because I've got a lot more information that I'm going to give you over the next few weeks, and you're going to enjoy this. So please do. And thank you very much for listening.